Hello everyone, in this video we'll walk through HackTheBox machine called Breach, which was transferred from Vulnerable. So you do need a VIP plus to work on this, but it's totally worth it. All the machines from Vulnerable are super realistic and have great techniques that you can learn. So let's dive in. I already solved this machine in advance, so the video is not too lengthy, but I'll walk you through my methodology and show you how I usually approach things. So let's start. As always, we will kick it off with an nmap scan. It's going to be sudo nmap -c-sv-t5 to make sure it runs a bit faster. I like to scan all ports with -p-. We give it the IP, www to make sure it's stable verbose, so we get DTL and things like that, and we output into nmap file. I already ran it to save it sometimes. We have the results. I like to keep my notes in Notion, so I'm just copy this over. So it's easier for me to go back to those. So yeah, I just have a simple Notion. I'll create a header called nmap. Now paste it in. And I'll change it to bash. So here looking at the ports, looks like we're dealing with Active Directory. The main controller, we got simple DNS, which is usually the indicator. We got 45389 LDAP. Also got MSSQL, which is interesting, and we got the main data. We also have RDP, and yeah, going around. And we also have web server, which is interesting, something we'll have to look into. So yeah, knowing this, let's enter it our host file first. Okay, I should already have it because I solved this box, but I might have to change the IP. So here, you always want to put fpdn first, then the domain name, and then whatever you want to. Last sentence doesn't really matter, it just makes it easier. This is required for if you do any Kerberos stuff from Linux, this is how you want to place it. So let's update the IP to .7.60. And now it should be good. Alright, so first thing I want to do is I want to create a simple checklist of things I want to check. So create a heading called enumeration. And because we do have web and we have Active Directory, I like to create two separate headings. One for Active Directory enumeration and one for web itself. Add this simple checklist. Like, hey, I want to check null, RPC, LDAP, and SMB. Because these are common vulns that can get you somewhere because we don't have credentials, so we need some users. I want to look at DNS centers and I want to run Kerbert. See if we can find valid users. And for web, the usual stuff, I usually want to pass directories. And I want to pass vhosts. So yeah, first I want to kick something in the background, so let's create multiple tabs. So here we'll call it Kerbert. So go down Kerbert. Kerbert is basically used to enumerate users. User new. And we give it DCIP, which in our case it's this one. Just copy it. Get domain, which in our case is breach.vl. And we need to give it a word list. I like to use statistically likely usernames, and I have all the lists in there like concatenated into one. I just output them all into one, so I don't run multiple lists. I specify dash dash downgrade, so there's Kerberos authentication using IIS is gonna try to downgrade it to RC4, and that way we could potentially find ISR-postable users. So run this in the background. Here I'll kick off that directory's current. I like to use dir search. You can see here I already have syntax here. And breach.vl and specify threads, which is 50. I like to use default list first because it can find some .env file or .git files, and then I'm gonna run a larger list. And here I'll kick off a virtual host scanner. To kick off virtual host scanner, you gotta make sure you have your etc host file, edit it. Oops, -15. Make sure you have the enters. And I run this command, basically specify the word list with common DNS names. I usually like the one from Jadix. Not sure how to pronounce that exactly. And you give the URL, which is breach.vl, and you give the host header to fuzz4. And you need some filters. First, usually do like a random filter. I filter based on words here. Give it like 1. And here you can see that 27 means there's no vhost, and you can filter based on that. And we could see if it's gonna find something. And I usually like to paste these commands into my notes. So here for vhosts, we're doing this. And for directories, this command. Oh, looks like it's already finished, but I didn't find anything interesting. I could give it a larger word list. I usually use the word list, which is very good. I'll just give it a medium directories and let it pass. So yeah, but it doesn't look like there's anything interesting on the web. We can quickly check the technology, but using curl -i to get the headers. And it looks like it's IIS. If we go to the website, seems like a simple IIS page, nothing interesting to be honest. So yeah, let's go back to the active directory portion. We already ran the kerberoot, so we can paste in our command. It's just useful to run some recon in the background while you're looking at the other things. Could save time down the road. Let's call this netexec because I usually like netexec to do all these things. So yeah, let's check for null RPC first. You can use RPC client for that. Specify -u, which is user, basically no user, and no authentication, and you give it either IP or the host name, which is breach.vl in our case. It looks like it authenticates us, but can we run any commands? I just do query domain info. Looks like it access denied. Toss it into the screenshot. Hey, no RPC. Next one, let's try anonymous LDAP binding. I just call it null LDAP, but it's actually anonymous LDAP binding. It might allow us to query LDAP without any credentials, so I usually use netexec for that. You just give it username and password, just empty ones, and see if it works. And now we get an error, doesn't look like it's working. Also can note that there's no channel binding and there's no sign enabled, so maybe we're able to do some kind of relay into LDAP later, which may come in handy. But for now, let's take a screenshot and put in the notes that, hey, there's no anonymous LDAP binding. And last one we have is SMB, null/guest SMB. Just change it to SMB. And look at that, looks like we got guest access. So let's try random user XYZ. And yeah, we have guest access. Can take a screenshot of that. Okay, awesome. Looks like with this we can try to enumerate shares and enumerate users. So we go next. Create another heading and we do no SQL enumeration. And here are the things you can usually do. First one is you want to check shares and permissions. You might be able to access some shares, which could be interesting. And next one I like to do is RID cycling, which is gonna enumerate all the users in the environment by brute forcing their RID. So first let's do shares. Toss the command in there. And the result. Oh, look at that. Looks like we have share that anonymous users can write to, which could be interesting. We'll look into it later. I got the user share. Yeah, so next thing we want to do is we want to spider those to see if there are any sensitive documents or something we could abuse. So for that, I usually use netexec spider plus module. It's just gonna go through each share and look at the files on those. So let's kick it off for now. I'll take a screenshot of this. Make it smaller. Alright, let's let this finish. Let's look at, looks like it's done. So to save the file to JSON, we can quickly look at it. And I usually type it to JQ to make sure it's a pretty JSON. Looks like share has nothing, and users has some default stuff, which is not very interesting. There's just a bunch of default files. Nothing interesting. Usually you might get lots of files. In that case, I usually like to grab for something like ES1 or docx to look for interesting files. Like, as you can see here, we don't have anything interesting, so we could move on. Init spider and shares node. Go back to our netexec and just copy the command. And add node, you'll find Interesting. Alright, now let's tie our decycling. We can also use netexec for that. And the commands for this --rad. I usually like to output it to some text file. Alright, so now if we look at the output, we can see we got all the users and groups that we can now use. So yeah, which is pretty cool. You can see the danger of null authentication SMB. You can enumerate shares, you can enumerate users, which could be very bad. So yeah, now we just want to message it to get the users only, so we could use those to do some maybe password spraying or some other things. So let's see, we can go for SID type user, just gonna give us only users. And next we can pipe it to off to get this field. So it's gonna be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's gonna be number 6. Let's make sure it looks right. Yep, it does. And now we just have to get this breach part and only get the second part. We can use cut for that. Cut HTB, specify delimiter. And we need the second field. And we output to users.text. And now we got our users that we can do something with. So yeah, let's save it. Let's take a screenshot, like hey, we're able to get the users. Okay, I think that's pretty much it with the enumeration phase. I don't think for the web we found anything on this box, so we can look at the directory brute forcing, there's nothing. We could look at virtual hosts. It's still going, it's gonna take a minute, but yeah, as we can see, nothing pretty much here, so we can go back to Active Directory. I'm pretty much confident there's nothing on the web here. It's just a default IS page, nothing interesting. So okay, another heading, which is gonna be our attack. And because HackTheBox, I usually add something like, hey, this is user, work on the user. So now we have users. First thing I'd like to try is to brute force, to spray credentials. I'll try username as password. So for that you can use netexec again. SeImpersonatePrivilege. So I'll specify, our username will be this and our password will be this. It's often users put their username as their password and you can get some credentials like that. So it's just something quick to try. It might work, it might not. So let's specify our user ID users list and password, and again our ID users list. And to make sure it doesn't brute force each username, we specify there's no brute force. And what's gonna do, it's gonna take the first username from the list, which is administrator. It's gonna tie the same username as a password. If you don't specify there's no brute force, it's gonna tie each of this for each username. So hit enter just to see if it will find anything. So as you can see, it's tying administrator, guest, clear pop, and doesn't look like there's anything. Next thing I like to try real quick is just to do quick password spray. We already know the username, so I can cancel our kerberoast. So next one is password spray. You just want to type some common password like hey welcome one, password one, exclamation point, just to see if it works, because sometimes it does. We're gonna use Kerberoast because it's super fast. We specify password spray flag to spray password, domain controller IP, and our domain, which is gonna be page.vl. We give it our users, file, and just some simple passwords. Welcome one. Looks like that didn't work. We'll type password one. And we'll type last one, which is gonna be something like 2025. Looks like none of this worked. We don't want to log out any account, so it's usually safe to type 2 to 3 password spare attempts, because otherwise you might log out some people. So with this we can tell that there are no weak passwords, so we have to go back to our nodes and see what else we can do. Here we can add tight password spraying. And here we add username as password. Take a screenshot of this. Let's type simple passwords. And nothing really worked. Alright, so nothing here. Going back to our notes, we can see that we can write to the share. What can you do? As anonymous user. Usually, sometimes what you can do is you can place a .onk file or .url file to steal a user's hash. Because every time we look at it, it's gonna force an authentication from the computer to us. Sometimes what you can do in real environments, they often have some kind of like scanners, either vulnerability scanners, or they have infrastructure scanners that are using credentials. And you can set up a tool called Responder. I'll just kill this, it's not gonna find anything. Let's name it Responder. And so it's gonna do, it's gonna try to poison traffic, and it's gonna spin up our HTTP server, rogue SMB server, rogue DNS server, rogue LDAP server. So basically, if, for example, a company has a vulnerability scanner that scans everything in a specific subnet. If it's gonna scan this subnet where you are hosting your responder, it's gonna give you an anti-LM hash of that user, most likely. And you can try to crack it, or you can try to relay it. It's worth remembering that all those scans usually are run after hours or during the weekend, so you might want to just spin up a responder and leave time. It doesn't cause any problems usually. Actually, I don't think it causes any problems ever. So you can just leave time, and you might be able to capture some credentials, or if you want to take it a step further, you can actually relay credentials, but we're not gonna demonstrate in this video because we can't. But I'll make some videos in the future to demonstrate relaying. So yeah, let's set up a responder. And now what we want to do is we want to create some files to make sure we can curse the authentication from the share in case somebody logs into it or checks it, and they would give us their anti-LM hash. So first, let's look at the share itself. We'll use SMB client for that. From Impacket, create a quick hidden. Look on the shares. So I just use SMB client, which is very handy. It's not hard to use. and give it some non-existent credentials. Let's forget the syntax. Is it / or /? It's this one. And we can just give it a random username, doesn't matter because we have guest access, it's just how Impocket likes it. And here we can list shares. And we got our share, so let's cd into share. Oh, we have to specify use first. It's gonna tell us to use the share. Here we can see the timestamps, which are pretty interesting. So we see transfer share has been changed recently, so there's a high chance that somebody has placed some files in there, or somebody logged in, so we can go to transfer and do less again. And we can see that Julia was changing something recently. Well, not crazy recently, but there was some activity going on. But it doesn't really matter because this actually displays the timestamp of files changed. It doesn't tell us if anyone has logged into share, so we just kind of trial and error. You put some files and you see if somebody logs in to it, and we can steal NTLM hash. To create documents to force NTLM authentication, I usually use this tool, which is called NTLM theft. From Greenwolf. And you can just copy it, and it's gonna create a bunch of files you can use to steal NTLM hash. The most common ones are .url and .lnk. I think .scf works sometimes as well, but these are pretty good. So there you have it on my system here. So I'll just create some files. For me, it's under tools directory. And it's NTLM.py and how to run it. Oops, it's quite okay. So yeah, basically give it a file name and a server IP. So you give it -s, usually called important, and the G to generate all files. You can also specify which ones you want. And server IP is going to be our responder IP. In our case, it's going to be 10.10.15.46. So it's going to try to reach out to it. In .46. And you go into important, and you can see it create a bunch of files. So I'm only going to place .urls there and .lnk1. Where is it? This one. So here, I'm just gonna go into that. It's directory temp important. I'm gonna authenticate again. Shares, use share. I guess cd into transfer. And here you just want to place those files into each directory because you don't know which one users are gonna use. And that way, if somebody looks at those files, we'll get an NTLM hash. Here in this box, I think it's transfer that the user usually checks, so we'll put it in there. So just place put, and it's gonna be important.lnk. It's gonna be important URL. And last one is important icon. We do less. Looks like we're able to place it successfully. And here we go. We already got the hash. So it looks like Julia connected to this share that we have. And once you look at these files, they're gonna force authentication to our user. We can see what they look like right here. Important.lk. What they do is they basically force authentication to our IP, like, hey, go to our IP to get something, and that's kind of how it works. So now that we got the hash, we want to actually clean up after ourselves. So we're gonna delete these files. And last one. So yeah, now we can get this hash and we can crack it using hashcat. Can go in here, cancel it. Vim Julia, yeah, LM hash. Can paste it in. Oh, looks like it has some spaces. Yeah, when you're using Temux, it doesn't copy properly. You can easily clean up new lines in Vim, but just don't remember the syntax right now, so I'll do it in a mouse pad quickly. So now we paste it. And now we can use hashcat. We know it's an anti-LMB2 hash, so we could look up what the hashcat mode for this is. Anti-LMB2. I think it's 5600, yeah, that's the one we need. And we give it the word list. Oh, because I already cracked it. It's gonna hit. Oh yeah, it looks like it cracked it, and we got our password, which is gonna be computer1. And yeah, we got the credentials for Julia, nice. And here I just like to save it into a file, so I'll do echo. And I'll just call it something like cats.txt to make sure we don't lose it. And we need to update our nodes, of course. We could see that we can do the share. So we decided place malicious files to steal anti-LM hash. Generating malicious files using anti-LM theft. Just go here. Where did I run that command? Oh, right here. Okay, so now we just copy and paste it to update our nodes and paste .rel.conk files on the share inside transfer folder. I'll just do a screenshot here. And we're able to capture the hash with the spawner. There we go. You also might want to blur some of this stuff out when you're taking screenshots on idle engagement, so you don't show the full password in their part. Next we add hashcat, the current password. And we have the password. Again, you might want to blur this part out in real engagements. Alright, so now we got the actual user, and there are a bunch of things we can do in Active Directory. I'm not gonna show all of those, but just things I usually check for. So I'm gonna create a new heading 3. I'm gonna call it credential enumeration because we do have credentials now. And let's just make sure they work. So we got user 1 and password is computer 1. And it looks like it's working. So here again, I create a checklist of basic things I usually check for when I have credentials in the main environment. And yeah, first one is we do shares. I want to look at descriptions for each users because sometimes they might have passwords. I want to do a password spray with the same password. Maybe there's password I use. I want to do ISO roasting. I want to do kerberoastable. I want to check delegations. And this, it's unlikely, but usually when you have a web server, it might indicate ADCS. So I also like to check for ADCS. And I also run blood count. There are a few more things you can check for example, like coercion, which could be useful for a lane. You can dump DNS entries. You can also look at LDAP. Also, you can also check machines that don't have SMB signing. But this, like for more larger environments, for CTFs, or if you get stuck, you might want to look into those. For this one, I'm just gonna move this last 4 entries because these are not super useful, and we'll just look at those. The first one, let's see if we can access extra shares. We'll do that. There's the shares. Let's toss the command in there. Looks like nothing interesting, like every user can read IPC net well and syswall. Share will already had access and users will already had access. You might want to run another spider plus just to see if there's anything there. already ran it before. I know there's nothing in the share, so but you might want to do that, so we can check it out. Interesting. Next one I like to check is descriptions for all the users. So just do users. And here we got the description field. And yeah, there are no descriptions, nothing interesting, so we can just leave it be. Add to our notes. Say nothing interesting. You might also want to do a screenshot, drop a screenshot here, but not always. Next one is password they use, so wanna give it dash continue and success flag to make sure it doesn't stop once it finds a correct username password combination. It will keep going to try it for next users, and we give it our list of users. I think I misspelled it. Continue. There we go. So yeah, as we can see, works for Joomla. It's gonna continue running because we have this continue and success flag, and yeah, there's no password to use, which is good. And we can add a screenshot this time. Like, hey, nothing interesting. Next, I want to check for ADCS real quick. For that, we have to use LDAP. ADCS. And yeah, there's no ADCS endpoint. There are no certificate services on this domain, so we just like, hey, there's nothing. Looks like this video is getting too lengthy, so I'm just not gonna populate notes as much. I think you get the methodology when I'm doing the boxes, and that's how I like to approach it. But for the sake of the video, I'll just continue with running the commands without putting them into notes. So next one I want to do is a roasting. Usually I like to use not execute for this. Just like, okay, find commands quickly. Roasting. And you just copy and paste. And there are no entries, so we can just mark it. And spell day. Next one, we want to check kerberoastable users. Oh, cool. Looks like we got one. So we'll take a note of this, but yeah, we'll remember that we kerberoast one user. So that's good. We'll try to crack their password later. Just wanna I just prefer to run through all my checklists first and then go to the next step before I jump into another account. So make sure I covered the whole area. Next one, we want to find dangerous delegations. If you're not familiar with Kerberos delegations, I recommend you go to check out my videos on Kerberos delegations. I got one for constraint, unconstrained, and resource-based constraint delegation. Those are basically ways to abuse Kerberos to escalate privileges. And NetExec has support for it as well. There's finder's delegation flag. And looks like there are no enters, so there are no delegations. And last one we want to do is run Bloodhound. So let me just spin up Docker. Might take a second. Next one, I usually prefer to use Hound to collect my data. Hold on, we're jumping ahead of ourselves. So we just give it the username. Oops. I'll just use it too. Spend at 60. So we give the domain page.vl, our user, our password, DNS server, which is -n. In our case, it's going to be the DCIP, which has the IP of 760. I think. Yep. Next, we give it the fully qualified domain name. It's not necessary, but helps it sometimes. And next, we want to zip the output. So let's run it. And it's going to collect all the data for us. Looks like our Bloodhound is running, so I usually run it on port 888, 8088 to make sure it doesn't interfere with my proxy tools. So let's connect. Here we log in. And you go to administration and you add the data you just collected. For me, it's going to be this one. It's going to take some time to ingest, but I already have a file, so we can go in. It's very slow today. So I can look for Julia to see if she has any enters in outbound permissions. She's marked as high value, but yeah, she's certainly not. No outbound. Let's see why she's marked as high value. Just go to member of. This is very slow today. Oh yeah, she is a member of print operators that used to be able to escalate privileges. I think with latest Windows versions you cannot do that, but Bloodhound still marks it as high value. If you're in an older machine, you might still be able to abuse it, but I think I have domain controller 2022, so it's not gonna work. Yeah, it's 2022. It's no longer gonna work. So yeah, let's add our nodes to run Bloodhound, and there's nothing interstellar for Julia. So let's go back to our kerberoasted user and try to crack their hash. Go back. Here in NetExec we can also see the hashcat mode for this, which is going to be 13100. And with our file, which is going to be kerberoastable.txt that has a hash. So now we can try to crack it. Give it our word list. and looks like it is task no one. So we also owned SVC MSSQL account, which is great. We can edit our credentials file. To make sure don't forget. And now go back to Bloodhound and let's look at the data. Let's see what permissions this user has. Oh, it doesn't look like there's anything outbound. This I found to be misleading. It has SQL admin, but I think it's a Hound glitch. In practice, user doesn't have SQL admin, but let's verify. We can use Impacket's MSSQL client to check this to connect to the Microsoft SQL database. So let's do that. HTB, and we give it username and password. And we need to specify -Windows -authentication to make sure it uses the domain controller authentication instead of the local account. That should have worked. Or an MSSQL instance, so that's down. We actually need MSSQL client for this. Timer service, no, I misspelled it. It's Breach. And yeah, here we can use help command and see if we can escalate privileges. We can try to enable XP CMD shell. And tells we don't have permissions. Let's see what kind of user we are, because it was saying that we're admin, but as we can see, we're not able to enable XP CMD shell. Looks like we're just simply guests, so we cannot do much. At this point, when I was solving this box, I got stuck for a little bit because I was like, hey, it says SQL admin. That kind of threw me off. Like, hey, why am I not able to run just CMD shell and execute commands? And I remember that we actually have a service account password, which means we can do silver ticket attack. If you look at SPM, it's like, hey, this is the actual service account for Microsoft SQL, which means we can do a silver ticket attack that would allow us to impersonate any user for this service, including administrator. And if we're able to impersonate administrator for Microsoft SQL, we can actually run the XP CMD shell. And how it works, if you go back to Kerbero's authentication flow, I can just Google it, Kerbero's authentication flow. Let's look at the images. Is there a good image that shows it? Oh yeah, I think it's this one. So here, when we get this ticket kind server teachers. Oh, this one's not that good. Here, when we get a service ticket, it's actually encrypted using services account hash, and we can, if we know the hash, we can impersonate any user to that service. Because once DC issues it, we can actually decrypt it using the service account hash, replace the SPN in there to be administrator, and send it to servers, and it will actually pretend to be an administrator. If you're familiar with golden ticket attack, it's very similar, but instead of impersonating the end user, instead of like modifying TGT, you're actually you actually modify TGS, which is ticket guidance service, and you can only present it to a specific service. I'm gonna show you how it's done, so hopefully it makes more sense. So here we have the actual account for actual MSSQL service account. We'll look at our cat. Add it twice. So here we got the SQL service account. It means that the service ticket will be encrypted using this password. Actually, using this password's hash, but essentially this user's password. So we can use a code called ticketer.py to forge a service ticket to impersonate administrator, and here's how it's done. Because the ticket is encrypted using the RC4 or NTLM hash of this password, first we need to get the actual NT hash, which is RC4 key. So we can use OpenSSL for this to generate an RC4 key. We just give the password here. And it's gonna do some conversion from UTF-5 to UTF-16, and it's gonna use OpenSSL to give us the hash for this password. There's gonna be the RC4 key that we can use to decrypt the TGS and encrypt it again. And here, we just need to copy this. Let's put it into our notes file. Just notes. And now we can use ticketer from Impacket to look at the syntax. Here's what it looks like. Essentially, just give it the target, which is gonna be the domain controller. We get the fake SPN, we need the domain. And we need the user that we're gonna impersonate. And here's some examples. Key hash, we give the encryption key, the main set, which is not going to be necessary in our case, and the domain, and a fake user I want to impersonate. So let's see how it works in action. For this, you 100% need your entry and etc host file. Otherwise, Kerberoastable not gonna work. And you also need to make sure your clock skew is greater than 5 minutes, not greater, lower than 5 minutes. So here, if we look at the clock skew, it's 24 seconds, which means we're fine. But if it's larger than 5 minutes, you would need to sync your clock with the domain controller, otherwise it's gonna fail. So here what we do is specify the ticketer, we give the NT hash of our user. Just got rid of this one. And we need to give it the domain set, which is necessary, and we can get it from Bloodhound. The easiest way, it's gonna be the SID, and this is the resource identifier. We don't want that, we only want the SID part. So we paste it in. Next we're gonna give the domain name. It's gonna be breach.vl. And we need to give the SPN as well, which we can copy from our user. It's gonna be this one. I usually put in quotes to make sure it doesn't break anything. And last one is wanna give it the user we wanna impersonate, which is gonna be administrator. And we click run. And look at that, it got us a silver ticket for administrator. So now, if we use the ticket to authenticate to MSSQL, we're gonna be authenticated as administrator. So let's export it first. And now we can use Kerberos. We just give it the FQDN and we give it -k for Kerberos and no pass to make sure it doesn't ask us for a password. And here we export the ticket, so it's gonna use this one from the variable, and we hit enter. And look at that, looks like we're DBO. So now we select our username. looks like we're DBO, which is one of the highest permissions on the database. So now we can try to enable xpcmd shell. And now it works. Now we can run the command. Example mi. And here we go. Looks like now we can run commands in the system. We can run system info. And we can see the system information. So it usually happens when you gain a shell as a SQL user, a SQL admin, you usually have permission to run impersonate. SeImpersonatePrivilege, that's the word I was looking for. So yeah, here we have it. SeImpersonate. And with this, we can use tools such as godpotato to actually run commands as system. So let's do that. First, we need to get an actual shell in the box. And for this, I usually like to use Nishang. So here I have my shell.ps1, which is just Nishang one-liner. If you Google Nishang GitHub, you can see it's from here under shells. Invoke partial TCP one-liner. This is the one. So here we just need to modify it if we need to. I'll already modify it to point to our IP and our port. I just need to host it using Python, simple HTTP server. And now from actual MSSQL shell, we need to run this command. What it's gonna do is gonna create an IX object and it's gonna execute our shell in memory. But before that, we need to start our netcat listener. Let's call it dub. And here we'll call it netcat and port. I usually like to run it with RL up to make sure we get the full TTY and get the command history and stuff like that. We can use up and down arrows to go back and forth between our commands. So here I'm gonna click on. We gotta make sure we escape double quotes because we're inside the Python shell. We run it and we can see it got our shell and executed it and gave us a shell. Let's see. So here we got SeImpersonate and we got full access to the system. Now we need to transfer godpotato. You could find it on the GitHub as well. You can see it's still gonna work on our server 2022. And yeah, you can read descriptions like if you have impersonate privilege permission, then you can run commands as system. So I have it transferred to dub, save as god.exe, so we just need to get it to our box. I usually like to download stuff to update a local temp because it's ephemeral and it cleans up after each reboot. It's kind of an OPSEC thing. I learned it from IPSEC. Here we just need to get our file. See. And here we have it. It's very simple to run. You just specify -cmd and the command. -cmd mi. And we can see we got system. So from here we can run any command to get a system shell. It doesn't really matter. I'm just gonna do a simple one, just do a reverse shell. We're gonna modify our existing shell to change the port because that was taken. change it to 53. I usually like to use lower ports because they're less likely to be blocked by the host firewall and less likely to be detected. Like if you use something like 43, anybody could look at it and be like, hey, what's going on? But if you use 53, which is used for DNS, it's gonna be a little bit more stealth there, but doesn't guarantee that you won't be undetected. Just a little bit more stealth. So now let's start another netcat listener. And from here we can just run this command again. I have it copied here. So we just run the same command that we ran from SQL shell, but we just ran from the using gut potato, and it's gonna give us the system shell. Oh, I think I need an extra code like this. And the object to connect the remote server. We didn't start our Python server. That's the problem. And yeah, and we got the new shell now as system. And here it is. We routed the box. So here now we can just go and user desktop. Oops, not like this. And we can get the root flag and repawn the box. So yeah, hope you enjoyed it. Also, as per recommendations, basically every time you do hack the box machine, you want to think about how you could fix the actual problem. So if we go back to our notes, first one is that we have guest authentication SMB, we should probably disable it. Then we got our weak passwords because we're able to crack it. So we want to make sure password policy is good. Next one, we're able to kerberoast an account. We want to make sure we're using GMSAs, or if we cannot use GMSA for some reason, make sure the service accounts have good passwords, like 20 plus characters. And the last one is silver ticket. There's nothing you can do about it. It's just how Kerberos works. The main vulnerability is that service account has a weak password that we're able to compromise if you're using GMSAs, or as I said before, fairly strong complex passwords, you'll be good. So yeah, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.